wanted to make this video because I've been thinking, and this time I've been thinking about safety. And the reason I've been thinking about safety is because I feel like I want safety in my life, but I'm not actually sure what it means. I don't know how I'll find it if I don't know what it is. So I thought it would be useful to look a bit closer at the subject of safety to see if I can work out what it actually means to me and whether there's anything that I can do to bring more safety into my life if I do decide that's what I want. So when I tried to find out the actual definition of safety, I realised there are a lot of different types of safety and definitely some that I worry about more than others. So in general, it's about feeling secure and safe from harm, but that can mean physical, emotional, financial, online, or even environmental safety. So I wonder if my growing thoughts about safety are connected to getting older, because I don't think my younger self was as bothered about safety as I am now. And I guess I do have a different perspective about how precious life is now compared to when I was younger. So I imagine that also might be connected to valuing safety more than I used to. I want to be here for a long time and I want to enjoy that time, so keeping safe feels important for that. So I wouldn't say that I do many risky things in my day-to-day life, but just being out and about in public can feel risky at times. There's often social problems, aggressive or antisocial behaviour, or people just generally being a bit unpredictable. I've seen vandalism, theft, fights, drugs, and I don't like it. I don't want things in my life like that, and I don't really know how to get away from them because they seem to be everywhere. And I do try to make sensible decisions about which streets to avoid or which times of day tend to be worse. But really, I love the idea of not having to experience that sort of thing in my everyday life, because basically I don't know how to deal with it or what the level of danger to me actually is. It feels unpredictable and that feels unsafe. So I think the word unpredictable might be quite an important one. And if you've seen some of my previous videos, you might already know that I've been discovering a few things about myself recently. And one of those is that I seem to have the autistic trait of being, of having quite an overreactive nervous system. So I often have strong reactions to things around me, particularly things that my brain perceives as a threat. So while I'm sure nobody likes experiencing those antisocial things in their lives, I think I have a tendency to react more strongly than other people and find it maybe harder to forget about afterwards. So having those kinds of reactions can be quite tiring, and maybe that's why I'm starting to feel more strongly that I want to feel safety, so that I don't have those sorts of experiences weighing on my mind and tiring me out. The safety is about more than just me, because I do have a strong feeling of wanting to keep other people safe too. My brain often wants to perform a risk assessment on behalf of other people and to pass on the results. And I generally keep those thoughts to myself because I realise that other people don't want me interfering with their decisions or seeming like I want to spoil their fun. And I think this is one of those examples where me and my brain don't agree. I want there to be fun and adventure in my life, and I want that for other people too. But my brain can't seem to be stopped from working out the risks and trying to point out what could go wrong, making everything feel a bit less safe. So I want to be one of those people who takes risks and lives a bit dangerously, but I also have that inner voice that tries to tell me that it isn't worth the risk. So do I feel unsafe in my day-to-day life? I'd say yes and no. I've got a nice routine that feels enjoyable and safe, but I can still be quite jumpy and reactive to anything unexpected. I don't like being like that, so I try my best to pretend that I'm not like that, but I'm starting to realise what an autistic trait that is, and I probably need to try and work with it rather than against it. But my brain seems to always be assessing everything around me and, will be very quick to point out anything that seems unsafe, and I'll have to try and decide what to do about it. I seem to be very good at noticing if something doesn't seem quite right, and I'm sure there are some good uses for that. But I think the energy involved in assessing my environment all the time is something that takes a lot out of me, whether or not I realise it. And it would make sense to think that I'm looking for safety so that I can give my nervous system the day off. I mean, maybe it wouldn't work like that in reality, and my nervous system can't take a day off no matter what the situation is. And maybe that's why autistic people tend to prefer routines and for things to stay the same from one day to the next. I certainly feel more relaxed when things feel quite predictable. But that's not what I want in my life. So maybe I just have to accept that I often won't feel safe, and that will probably tire me out. But that might be the price that I have to pay if I want to have the sort of life that my brain doesn't prefer. So I wonder if this is making any sense to anyone else. I think I have another autistic trait that gives me a contradiction when it comes to safety, and that is socialising with other people. So I would never want to imagine my life without other people, but they also cause me a few problems. And I think I'm starting to understand more and more that the autistic traits that I have mean that I don't often feel comfortable around other people. I mean, I do have to keep putting myself through it, and I want to, but it takes a lot out of me and is probably another thing that makes me want to look for safety. People are unpredictable, and even with friends and family, I often can't truly relax until I'm back on my own. I mean, I wish I wasn't like that, and I wish there was an easy way to explain it to other people. But I am like that, and there isn't really an easy way to explain it. I think it could get better if I was more honest, but I don't really want people to treat me differently, so I struggle with the idea of telling them. If people knew I was uncomfortable with eye contact, it would make me feel even more uncomfortable with eye contact, I think. So I get quite a sensory overload from being around people, and it feels like there are threats all around because I can't predict what they'll do or how I'll react. The lights and the sounds and the smells can all be a bit too much, as well as the eye contact and the small talk. And it's frustrating because I know I'm safe, but my brain doesn't believe me. So, looking at the reasons for trying to feel safe, I am starting to realise that it probably comes from having an oversensitive autistic brain. And maybe the best thing I can do is to learn how to work with it rather than trying to fight it. I think I'm already making progress, but I still need to try harder at accepting these traits and being more honest about how I feel. The trouble is, I've been hiding it so well for all my life, because I didn't even know that I was hiding it, that I think people will find it hard to believe that I'm telling the truth. And I know I've talked about that before, but it's still something that I'm finding hard. But I'm definitely getting a bit more understanding towards myself, so I think that's helping. I was in a situation a few days ago where I was in a noisy environment around people who were wearing strong smells like perfume and aftershave, and I started to feel quite uneasy. I reminded myself why I was finding it hard, and that alone made me feel a bit better. I was still pleased to get away from that situation, but it was nice to have a better understanding of why I was finding it hard. So maybe this whole question of safety really does boil down to autistic traits that threaten to overwhelm my nervous system a lot of the time. It'll be interesting to find out if safety starts to feel less of a problem if I'm understanding myself a bit better and making more effort to balance out some of the sensory challenges with more quiet time to relax after being in a situation that's maybe jangled a bit too many of my sensitive senses. I'm sure that wanting to feel safe isn't purely an autistic trait, and but having looked a bit more closely at what safety looks like for me, it does seem to be connected to the sensory overload that I often experience in my day-to-day life. So I wonder whether other people can relate to that, or maybe if you have different concerns about safety in your lives. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts if you wanted to leave a comment. So I hope you've taken something useful from this video, but I think that's all for this time. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!